Good afternoon, folks, and thanks for joining us. Welcome to the MMA Sucka Podcast. My name is Tim Wheaton, joined as always by the editor at MMA Sucka, Frazer Krohn. Frazer, how you doing today, man?
Yeah, good, thank you, mate. After a weekend of fouls, shall we say, in the MMA world, we got a little bit of boxing action to talk about, and then we look ahead to what is set to be a fairly decent weekend in the world of combat sports. So yeah, I'm excited for this one.
There's a lot going on this weekend, but yeah, this past weekend I made sure to go out of my way, make sure to catch up on the Belal Muhammad versus Vicente Luque fight. And what a waste of time that was for me! Like, holy shit! Like, if you saw the first round, I feel like you saw the whole fight of like somehow Vicente Luque cannot make any progress in a fight unless you are throwing your chin directly at him. He cannot create openings for himself in any way, and then Belal Muhammad is more than happy just to cruise to a victory. And I don't want a Dana White-ism on them, but boys, it's a main event. Like, make it count. You know what I mean? I don't want to Dana White them, but in this case, like maybe step on the gas a bit.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the broadcast team picked up on it that there's no great submission threat. You know, Belal Muhammad, we knew what he was trying to do, fight off the back foot. And, you know, he showed exactly how you fight off the back foot effectively, you know, keep moving. And, it kind of alludes to what we were talking about with PT Yan and Aljamain Sterling last week is, yes, Aljamain Sterling had his back up against the fence for that first round, but I still think he won the first round. Now, Belal Muhammad pretty much won the fight by having his back up against the fence and then shooting for the double or the single leg as and when it sort of presented itself. He didn't force it, which I thought was really good. But yeah, the broadcast team definitely picked up on the fact that Belal Muhammad, you know, once he gets it to the ground, what next? You know, he's not a submission threat at all. Yep. For me, it's unfortunate that his style doesn't lend itself to beating anyone above him now. You know, his style.
That sucks. But yeah, it's
tough.
True.
You know, if you look at those above him, you got Usman, the champion, far superior wrestler, not going to be able to. You know, Belal Muhammad's game doesn't favor itself against the three wrestlers above him in the division, Usman, Colby, and Khamzat. I don't think he takes any of them down. So then what? You know, he's not too dangerous with the hands. The switch body kick I thought was working really well against Luque, but that's one shot. You know, and he did land a couple of decent shots on Luque. He's got a really good chin, but. You know, like I say, the guys above him are all better wrestlers than him, and I think his best shot at progress is Leon Edwards. But obviously, we know Leon Edwards, and that's purely because, you know, he's not the wrestler of a Khamzat, of a Kamaru Usman, of a Colby Covington, he hasn't got the ground game of a Gilbert Burns. So that's just process of elimination. But we've seen them two face each other again. We've seen them face each other previously. And Edwards was battering him in the first round before the eye poke.
Yep. He was well ahead. He showed that he was the better fighter, and that's the thing. Leon Edwards is a watchmaker when it comes to striking. He finds those openings. He knows what he's looking to do, and he doesn't look like an amateur out there. And this fight, whatever Belal Muhammad's next fight is, whether it's someone above him, someone behind him, I don't think anyone's excited is the biggest issue, right? Like, no, you probably can't beat anyone in front of you, just like you said. He can't beat anyone in front of him. He can probably beat some people behind him, but in both cases, who cares? Like, you know what I mean?
I know it's difficult as well because, like I say, if he was maybe in the lightweight division, if you drop down to lightweight, you know, you probably could have a little bit more success against the top guys in the lightweight division. You know,
maybe
he could possibly take some of those guys down. You know, like a Conor McGregor, for example, a Tony Ferguson that we've seen susceptible to the takedown as of late.
Yeah.
And even going up to middleweight, Israel Adesanya, we've seen him susceptible to the takedown. If Belal Muhammad was either slightly bigger or slightly smaller, he'd probably be able to mix it with the top 3 or 4 of the division.
True. That's true.
He's just unlucky is the fact that it's Usman, Colby, and Khamzat at the moment are all superior wrestlers in comparison to Belal.
Welterweight's just historically a wrestler's division. Currently, it's a wrestler's division. What a weird coincidence that forever we can always point to welterweight and be like, Pat Miletich, wrestler, been a wrestler ever since for some reason.
Exactly, yeah, and it's you know, like you say, from Miletich to Matt Hughes, and then we had GSP, who Yeah. Let's not call him a wrestler as a college wrestler, but he's probably one of the best wrestlers that we've ever seen in MMA. And then, you even got, realistically, Khabib is a welterweight. Khabib at the moment is a heavyweight, but Khabib should have been fighting at welterweight to further his legacy. And obviously, we won't ever get that. But yeah, it's interesting. Like we said last week, with featherweights, there's so many one-sided fights. Yeah. And now with welterweight, there's so many wrestling heavy fights. It's just interesting how these trends sort of crop up in MMA.
Speaking of Khabib never went up in weight, why don't you list the other things that you hate about Khabib Nurmagomedov while we're our thousands of new fans are probably all very normal, not Russian people. I looked at the analytics. Welcome to the show. Lots of people from Russia for some random reason. I don't know what we did last week to get that, but yeah, I think we've done enough hating on last week. Well, I mean, I guess we got a couple more fights. What else did you see on the card that you want to talk about? I know we had some other exciting fouls to break down and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was just I found it strange that the fact that the regularity of the fouls. We had one in the co-main event and one in the Chris Barnett fight. And we also then had, I'm sure we'll go on to talk about the Bellator card on Friday night. We had a foul on the Bellator card in the co-main, which obviously led to the no contest in that fight. Now both the fights in the UFC actually went to a decision. Mm-hmm. And Jamal Hill, I think it was Jamal Hill, tweeted something that made a lot of sense. He said, well, why not, if I'm winning in a fight, why not just foul my opponent to the point where he can't continue, and then I'll get the victory? Because that's exactly what happened in both of these fights, especially in the co-main. The referee took a point off Balarajo, and yet he then went on to call it, he did take the point off, which is what should have happened, but you'd only take a point off for an intentional foul. Now, why did the fight then go to a decision in favor of the fighter that's just caused the fight to stop early? Yes, it was in the third round, and yes, he dominated the first two rounds, but that isn't the point. That's, you're almost encouraging people to, like Jamal Hill sort of tweeted out saying, you're encouraging people to foul their opponent if they're ahead in a fight, because they will just then sort of skip the risk of being knocked out in the final few minutes and get a victory.
I think for a while now in MMA, this weekend really did exemplify it. Of the rules are, if they are not enforced, there is no reason not to just cheat. You'll get 5 or 6 warnings before anything will really happen. And even after you get a warning, you can still potentially win that fight, because a warning is just a warning. It's not actually anything substantial. There's no incentive not to cheat in MMA right now, unless they're going to start taking points away right away and have some actual punishment for fouling someone, which is like the reason these are fouls is supposed to be like maybe the 12-6 elbow is a little bit silly and stuff like that, but most of it's for fighter safety. Back of the head is a serious thing that can actually lead to someone's death. And unless you're going to punish someone, this is on the referee. Because if I'm a fighter, like this is, if you're saying I can foul someone and I get double the amount of pay, yeah, all right, I'll foul them all day. Yeah, no problem at all. Unless you're going to punish these fighters, don't be surprised when they keep fouling, right? And we've seen this time and time again with like eye pokes and other stuff like that. There's no punishment for doing that. There's no punishment.
Yeah, and it wasn't exactly trending towards a great night with regards to fouls. Obviously we had Bellator on the Friday, but then in just the second fight of the night, the first fight ended in a hellacious KO at the with Kevin Krohn on the wrong side of that. But yeah, in the Sam Hughes fight, her opponent had Nunes had a point taken off I think it was in the third round for repeated eye pokes.
Good, but why was it need to be repeated? These people
exactly.
Know the rules.
I think it was the third eye poke she then had a point taken off. Maybe one, you gave a hard warning. You stop the fight and say, look, hands up. You constantly see referees, hands up, not sort of pointing towards your opponent, but you have to put your hands up. Yeah. Sorry if you're listening on Spotify, but it's high-fiving the screen at the moment. But the referee constantly says, look, fingers need to be pointing up, or your fist needs to be closed. And it is natural to have your hands out to sort of parry away shots and whatnot, but
Mhm.
You can't do that. It is against the rules. And until the UFC, work with a new sort of glove manufacturer, these are still going to continue to be an issue.
Yeah.
But everybody that signs for the UFC, everyone that's ever fought in MMA knows that you can't just go at your opponent's eyes and sort of eye poke. This was one of the rules from UFC 1.
Yes.
This is not like the knee to the grounded opponent. This has been a rule since UFC 1.
Yep.
And last week we celebrated UFC 273 plus all the fight nights. There's been way over 500 UFC shows week in, week out. The rules, and just people are still going on to break them. It's ridiculous in my opinion. And like I say, with the knees to a grounded opponent, the fighters are informed in the fighter meetings and with the meeting with the referee before the fight itself. These rules are enforced now. It is, for example, 3 points of contact. It is 4 points of contact, and the referee in the fight as well will give them warnings. He's down, and yet people still continue to break the rules. I just, the Chris Barnett one's slightly different because that was, yes, it was an elbow to the back of the head, but Barnett was constantly moving, so I don't think that one was as intentional. But the one in the co-main event for me was, it was intentional, and he shouldn't have got the victory. Like you say, he's doubled his pay.
Yeah, there's an incentive to cheat is what that's created.
Exactly, and it's we'll move on to talk about the Bellator card now. And
I'll just quickly tell you a list of UFC events. Volkanovski versus Korean Zombie was number 600 for the UFC. Congratulations on 600 shows for the UFC. Good job, boys.
Well, there you go then. 600 shows before this one, and people are still eye poking their opponents.
Don't know the rules.
Now, don't get me wrong. I don't expect these fighters to have watched all 600 past UFC shows, but the rules.
At least 500.
The rules. Exactly. 500. And you've got a guy at the top of the card, Belal Muhammad, who had to have a fight called off due to just a single eye poke, I believe. Sorry, no, it's the second eye poke of the fight in what was the biggest fight of his career.
In a main event, yeah, that sucks.
These people need to learn,
Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, I'm just saying these people need to learn how to, if they're going to parry shots, don't parry fingers out, parry fingers up, and sort of, almost swipe down. But, that's the swiping down is the sort of raking of the eyes, shall we say.
Remember the one time, I think Israel, because Israel does reach out a lot, and I think he only got in trouble for eye poking once, and then he explained to the ref, what I'm trying to do is I tuck my thumb in, and then I turn my fingers to the outside. So I'm just trying to palm guys. And he kind of trained himself to do that. And we don't see a lot of eye pokes in his fights. And he reaches out all the time in his bouts. But it's not a real issue. It's quite often just like kind of how you're practicing. Because you get in habits with big boxing gloves, I think, with hitting mitts. If it's like, I kind of just throw my hand out because of parrying or I'm trying to frame or something like that. But no, I think people need to start like put your fingers on the outside, just like use your palm or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it makes fights fair at the end of it. Yes, we don't get eye pokes in every single fight, but yeah. I can't imagine being poked in the eye and then, a few minutes later, someone throwing punches at my head from that side and me having to, avoid those strikes that are coming at me when I've got blurred vision.
Man, start punishing these guys. Enforce the rules already. Just do it. Let's move on to the Vadim Nemkov getting big surprise, just getting absolutely worked by Corey Anderson, and then as just the most Bellator. This is just like Bellator is going to Bellator, and it's not even a joke. An accidental clash of headbutts declares the fight to the end, but they weren't over the halfway point by about 7 seconds, so they couldn't go to a decision. 7 more seconds, Corey Anderson would be a millionaire, but he didn't because he accidentally hit his head against another man's skull in a fist fight. I don't know what to say, man. This is a weird one.
Yeah, for sure. And, he was, like you say, he was dominating the fight, surprisingly so. I picked Nemkov going into the fight, and I thought he'd do much better. But Corey Anderson looked like the much bigger guy in there as well. Nemkov isn't a huge light heavyweight. We know that from, since he joined Bellator. He's not a massive light heavyweight. But he looked like the size was affecting him. Corey Anderson was getting him down with relative ease, controlling him against the fence, and then controlling him when the fight got to the floor. that headbutt is one of the most unlucky things that I've seen in MMA with regards to a fight being stopped. You know, it reminds me ever so slightly of the Matt Mitrione. I can't remember who he was fighting when ran across the octagon and received a low blow. I'll try and find that
it
now.
was the Russian man who we thought was like 85 years old, but turns out he's just in his
Karasanov, is it?
Yeah, it was
Karasanov.
Haratonov. As if that description was like, oh yeah, him. I know exactly who you're describing.
You know, that was 15 seconds into their bout, and the fight was called off. This was unluckily for Anderson much further on in the bout. You know, it was like you say, 7 seconds before the end of the second round, I believe. It was end of the second or end of the third round?
End of the third round.
End of the third round. So yeah,
which is more than halfway through the fight. You could probably go into the scorecards if you wanted to.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and I think maybe the fact that they hadn't completed the third round, with it being a 5-round fight, you need to go over the majority to say,
fine. Yeah.
You know, Corey was winning the fight, but
you need to finish the round.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but at the same time, like I say, the accidental clash of heads is if you see the moment when they did clash heads, it's just unlucky. You know, Corey looked to land a big elbow like he'd done a few seconds before, made the read on that and moved his head to the side as Corey came down, the clash of heads. But you know, Corey Anderson's claiming, you know, he's shouting in the crowd, you know, that he is the champion. Unfortunately, you're not. You know, you're not a millionaire, you're not a champion, and you're not the winner of the Grand Prix. That
sucks. It just sucks. And he was winning this fight. He's driving like the fight of his life up to that point.
For sure. And you know, now you give Nemkov the opportunity to go back. You know, let's be honest, there's got to be a rematch now, because that's just what's got to happen. You know, you got to let the cut heal for Nemkov. I thought the doctor did call it off awfully quickly. He looked at him and said, "No, okay, fight's over." Now, I don't disagree with that, but it just seemed within 5 seconds of the doctor coming in, the fight was called. But you know, it is what it is. And for Nemkov, you give him another 6 or 7, maybe 8 months to drill the wrestling, drill the takedowns that Corey was landing. Corey's not going to come in with a different game plan. He's coming with the same game plan for his 20-odd fights, you know. And against Nemkov, it was working. But now Nemkov knows exactly how Corey Anderson feels. Maybe he trains with heavyweights next time.
Yeah, and you're absolutely correct. No, I totally agree with you. You give him more time. Do you think this fight... Is it fair if a commission doesn't look at a fight in a vacuum and says, like, this is for a tournament final? This is a major tournament final for light heavyweights. Can we go to the scorecards or something like that? Or is it fair to say, like, you know what, regardless of titles or names or championship belts on the line, all fights are equal, regardless of how much weight is behind it? What is the actual correct way of looking at fights? I've been on both sides of that argument too, and I don't know what the right answer is.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I agree with you. It's no hard and fast, right? Title fights, this happens. Non-title fights, this happens.
Yeah, because I want to say like fights with more weight, like with a title, should be treated as such. But I also want to say, like, well, a fist fight's just a fist fight. We should really be judging this equally, right?
Yeah, for sure. And you know, I call it a foul. It's not a foul, but the foul itself, if that would have happened further down the card and they would have gone to the judges, it's difficult to say that. You know, let's say that Aaron Pico landed a headbutt. Sure. It's difficult to not give Pico, you know, his sort of show and win money, whereas you'd be giving Anderson $1 million. So it's difficult. But and you know, the thing is with Nemkov as well. Yes, he was dominated over the first 3 rounds, but there's nothing to say that he wouldn't have come back. You know, the swelling on Corey Anderson's eye was getting worse, and I don't think with such stipulations on the fight, I think you wouldn't be able to just call it as far as, you know, oh well, he was winning the fight, he'd probably go on to win the fight.
I get what you're saying.
Seconds between fighters, because then, you know, Nemkov enters the potential rematch as the B-side, then as not the champion. Corey Anderson then doesn't have to give Nemkov a rematch.
That's true.
Whereas, you know, Nemkov let's be honest, the next fight for each man is a rematch.
Yes.
Corey Anderson's not going anywhere. Nemkov, if he's got any sense, would try and avoid the Corey Anderson fight, but will more than likely have the rematch. If Anderson was a champion, why fight Nemkov again? He's dominated him for 15 minutes.
Yep.
Anderson probably goes on to fight, a money fight in a Yoel Romero or an Anthony Rumble Johnson.
Mess of a situation. It's the worst outcome you could have ever wanted. But Patricio Pitbull does get a unanimous decision, which fans did complain about online, against the Phenom AJ McKee, formerly undefeated, 18-1, as they say. He lost the title in this fight. Close fight by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, both these guys are super fun, but I think the real winner here is Bellator. We got a good trilogy on our hands, a good legitimate trilogy. This is a good one, right? But
yeah, for sure.
I don't know. What do you think of the fight? What do you think of the future of these guys?
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit sick of hearing, it's a robbery, it's a robbery. It's not it's a close fight.
No, it's a close fight.
It's a close fight. Aljamain Sterling's wasn't a robbery. Aljamain Sterling's was a close fight.
Yeah.
AJ McKee didn't do enough to win that fight. And I can understand why some people thought that he did do enough to win that fight.
Yep.
It's a close fight. It isn't a robbery. There's a complete difference between a robbery and a close fight. A robbery is when AJ McKee clearly wins 4 out of 5 rounds.
Yeah.
And doesn't get the decision. I think, McKee was the fight was, for me, it was a strange fight. The leg kicks of Pitbull were paying dividends. He landed a lot of leg kicks early. That clearly sort of sent McKee off his game ever so slightly.
Mm-hmm.
But McKee was, calling Pitbull on, wanting to get into an exchange with him. But then when Pitbull was throwing, McKee was covering up and not looking to counter, which I didn't quite understand. With a lot of McKee's shots as well, I think it was the third or the fourth round, he hurt Pitbull and then went for a spinning heel kick and kind of fell off balance and sort of fell backwards into the cage. It was a strange one for me, but I think, like you say, finally Bellator have got a trilogy that makes sense. McKee did say that he wants a trilogy at 155, which doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense. No, thank you.
By all means, I think the trilogy has to happen at 145, and then if he does get the belt, retire the belt sort of straight away. If that's if you got no intention to fight at 145 again, but fighting at 155 for no belt doesn't make sense to me. But I think what I kind of realized is, the vast differences between the UFC and Bellator. Volkanovski and Holloway at least toy with both guys. I think Volkanovski maybe even finishes one or two of the guys. Holloway 50-44, 50-43s, both of them. They're just worlds apart in my opinion.
Yeah, I want to put Patricio Pitbull also has so much history in Bellator, and he's actually quite a good fighter. I want to put him on because I want to include fighters on our pound for pound list who aren't just UFC fighters, but they make it hard to make the case every once in a while. And it's like you said, I think he's really talented, but yeah, maybe he's top 5 in the UFC.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, it's just the feints that each guy was throwing, they weren't of any. The feints that AJ McKee was throwing, he wasn't getting anything from Pitbull. Pitbull was not reacting to those feints. And then when he did throw, he did feint and then throw the leg kick, Pitbull checked it because it was so easy to read from McKee.
You need to have meaningful feints,
for sure. And you want to watch meaningful feints, go and watch a Volkanovski fight, go and watch a Holloway fight. And I don't want it to come across that I'm bashing AJ McKee because he's 18-0. And some of the names on his record are phenomenal names on his record, and he's 18-0, all 18 fights in Bellator. That's a feat in itself, and he is still only 27.
He's a real talent.
With that being said, I don't think that he mixes with the best in the UFC. I think going into the fight this week, he said, I will hold a UFC belt, or I want to hold a UFC belt before my career is finished. And Pitbull took that, is kind of disrespecting the Bellator slightly. But based on the performance at the weekend, you're only as good as your last fight. He doesn't hold a belt in the UFC. He's not even close, in my opinion.
No, I think that's true, and I can still see the argument for maybe developing and stuff like this. But yeah, he's a very talented fighter, but still needs to improve, especially in a division as stacked as featherweight. But if Pitbull's going to get mad at everybody disrespecting Bellator, there's a ton of us, man. You're going to be mad at a lot of people.
I was going to say, you're going to spend a lot of time online.
Should we move on? Speaking of meaningful feints, can we move on to the real fight? Like the thing that we actually want to talk about for upcoming this weekend. We got a big fight this weekend. Can we move on to that one? Enough flirting with Bellator. Let's get to the big boys.
Yeah, I'm all about it now.
Yeah, let's get into it. Tyson Fury versus Dillian Whyte is finally happening this weekend. Break it down. What do you see in this fight? Who do you have coming out of it? How do you see it coming out?
It's a very difficult one for me, on paper, and if you're bookies, you Tyson Fury all day. He's coming off the trilogy fight with Deontay Wilder, where he had to pick himself up off the floor and go on to knock Wilder out. Dillian Whyte's coming off the 2 fights with Povetkin. Obviously, he got knocked out in the first one, and then rallied in the second one to dominate the old Russian, and rightfully so. He should have done that in the first fight. How does Dillian Whyte handle the biggest stage? Tyson Fury's had these fights against Deontay Wilder. He's put in training camps like this multiple times. Dillian Whyte, he didn't turn up to the press conference a few months ago. We don't know if he'll turn up to the press conference this week. If they even have one, he might not. He might just come weigh in on Friday and walk and go go backstage, go back to his hotel room or whatever. How does Dillian Whyte handle? Because with the greatest of respect to Dillian Whyte, this is his first and last opportunity for a world title fight.
Sure.
Because he's waited this long. He's waited. He's the mandatory challenger for over 1,000 days. If he loses this one, don't expect him to be in a title fight ever again. And that's not to say that he's going to go on the decline if he loses this one, but it's just to say that you've got, Anthony Joshua's bigger name than him, Alexander Usyk bigger name than him.
Oh yeah.
Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, and then you got, on the come up, you got Joe Joyce, Daniel Dubois, Hrgovic, Babic, all of these guys that are, unfortunately for Dillian Whyte, bigger names than Dillian Whyte.
Yep.
But the fight itself, I expect Fury, he's still at the Krohn gym, so I expect him to be on the front foot, and Dillian Whyte is not the kind of fighter to take a step back. But I think we can expect multiple game plans out of Tyson Fury. Maybe in the first 3 rounds he'll come forward, then 4, 5, and 6 he might step. He might counter punch. Sort of fighting on the back foot. But I think he's going to have to go in there and look to utilize his skill, focusing on the drawbacks of Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte's pacing. We've seen him tire before in fights, but he is used to these 12-round fights now. But the main thing for me is he's susceptible to getting caught late on in fights. Dillian Whyte, he got caught against Anthony Joshua and knocked out cold. He got caught against Povetkin. That was earlier on in their first fight. I think that was in the so that was in the 5th round that he got caught against Povetkin. But he was dropped against Oscar Rivas late on. He was dropped against Joseph Parker late on. He put in that boring performance in Saudi Arabia against Vac, and I think Tyson utilizes the fact that Dillian Whyte loves the scrap, and he probably tries to goad him into that scrap and gets Dillian to overthrow, and possibly, I'm picking Fury by late KO, but I can see him being furious. I can see him being hurt to the body, and I can see him being dropped by Dillian Whyte's left hook. Dillian Whyte's got one of the best, probably the best left hook in the heavyweight division. Tyson Fury, obviously, because he doesn't fight and doesn't try to catch an awful lot of shots, he tries to slip an awful lot of shots. He's slipping using, his upper body, slipping out of the way of shots, leaving his body open. Dillian Whyte's nickname is the body snatcher. He will rip to that body. And because he's so tall and so long, Tyson Fury, and like I say, because he just kind of moves from his upper body and looks to we've seen the infamous 10-second clip of when he fought. I think it was when he fought Tommy Schwartz, when he's lying on the ropes, avoiding all these shots and slipping out of the way. Don't get me wrong, it looks phenomenal, but Dillian Whyte rips to your ribs with a left hook. You're not going to be moving like that for too much longer. So I could see my sort of official pick, as it were, is Tyson Fury gets off the floor to win by 10, 11, maybe even 12 round KO.
So there is a few opportunities for Dillian Whyte here, mainly body work and such like that. But really, you're saying this is a Tyson Fury fight through and through.
I'd say so, yeah. Dillian has got a phenomenal jab, but you're not going to out jab Tyson Fury. Tyson, it all depends how big Tyson comes in. We'll learn on Friday what his sort of game plan will be. If he comes in lighter than he did against Wilder last time out, we'll know that he's going to look to sort of dance around Dillian and counter punch.
Yeah.
And if he comes in heavy, we know that he's going to put it on Dillian, and that's what is so good about the heavyweight division is there's no upper limit, so he can come in as heavy as he wants, and we'll know his game plan, or he can come in as light as he wants, and we'll know his game plan, and we won't know that until the Friday. Whereas you look down the divisions, we had Conor Benn and Errol Spence in action this past weekend. We kind of know their game plans because they can only come in at the welterweight limit.
Yeah,
so it is interesting.
It's going to be a fun one indeed. And I think this was handled quite well this was the right idea to put it at Wembley Stadium. I'm sure there was some T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas or something like that offering them more money, but this was one for the fans. They sold reportedly 85 to 90,000 seats are sold. They asked for an extension to 10,000 more seats or something like that. I'm not sure if they got it, but this is the right handling of, this is for the fans. This is two UK British fighters. Put it in Wembley Stadium. This is a historic event. Muhammad Ali fought at Wembley Stadium. This is a big event. This was the right thing to have it. Don't put it in some desert in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, for sure. And it's for the UK fans, we're being treated because we haven't seen a Tyson Fury fight on these shores for years, since he had that strange comeback fight. I think it was in Manchester. I think that was his last, or the one in Belfast. I can't remember off the top of my head. So he had the comeback fight in Manchester in 2018. Then he fought in Belfast at Windsor Park on the Frampton undercard in also in 2018. Then we've had California, Nevada.
That's where the money is.
It's where the money is. But if you're a UK fan, it's also getting up in the middle of the night. It's not where the money is. Let's say that. And for Dillian, he hasn't fought abroad in quite a long time now. He's tell a lie, I forgot that his last fight was in Gibraltar. That strange card in Gibraltar, but
cursed.
That is what it is. But Dillian has fought more in the UK. He's not a big name in the US. He's fought just the once in the US, from what I can see down his record now, and that was back in 2017. It was a third round blowout. It makes sense to do it in at Wembley, I feel, but and I think it's going to be a phenomenal fight. And looking down the undercard.
Well, let me just throw. I just want to throw one more at you here, but Dillian Whyte. So in the Tyson Fury's last 5 fights, he's fought 3 men. Otto Wallin and Tom Schwartz. And I think Otto Wallin maybe didn't get the fair shake that he deserved coming into that fight. He was actually a lot better than we all expected. But where does Dillian Whyte rank among Tyson Fury's last few opponents? He's got to be, is he just behind Deontay? Is he ahead of Deontay? Is he at least ahead of Otto Wallin? Where do you think he ranks in quality compared to Tyson Fury's last 3 fights?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely better than Tom Schwartz.
Okay.
He's better than Otto Wallin as well. Just, all right. I think based on who he's fought, Dillian Whyte's fought, yes, and he lost to Anthony Joshua, but he fought Joseph Parker, Derek Chisora, twice, Oscar Rivas, Robert Helenius, going down the record, Dave Allen, who's a strong journeyman. Okay. And now he's in there with Tyson Fury, and deserves. For sure. He's earned his shot at Tyson Fury. Is he better than Deontay Wilder? He's without a doubt better boxer than Deontay Wilder. There's no question about that. But
Yep.
is he a better? As ridiculous as it sounds, he's a better boxer than Deontay Wilder. But is he better in a boxing ring than Deontay Wilder?
Go on. What do you mean there?
So he skill for skill, Dillian Whyte is a better boxer than Deontay Wilder. There's no doubt. You know, we go on about, and we have always gone on about how Deontay Wilder is not, his technique is not the crispest. Yes, he certainly improved in that third fight against Tyson. You know, using the jabbing down to the body, trying to bring Tyson's hands down. But his equalizer is the power. You know, Deontay Wilder is the hardest hitting heavyweight alive at the moment. Dillian Whyte isn't the hardest hitting heavyweight, but his technique is far superior than Deontay Wilder's technique. So that's a fight I'd love to see, because in my eyes, technique-wise, Dillian Whyte is the better boxer. But is he better in a boxing ring when you take into account the power of Deontay Wilder, the reach and the Deontay Wilder? That is a fight I'd love to see. But I think, you know, purely based on resume alone, Deontay Wilder's got to be seen as better. You know, he's a WBC champion. He officially has a draw with Tyson Fury, but that's, you know, I can't be dealing with that. But, you know, 42 wins, 41 KOs, and he's knocked out, apart from Tyson, he's knocked out everyone that he's fought.
Right.
You know, he went the distance with Bermain Stavern, and then obviously knocked him out within a round when they rematched.
Yeah, I getcha.
His record kind of speaks for itself, but I think Dillian Whyte is a live opponent for Tyson Fury. Don't get me wrong; it's not a Thomas Walter and Otto Wallin who were given no chance. But I also do think that, you know, with the greatest respect to Dillian, Fury's probably a different level.
Yeah, okay. It's a big step up for him. Now, what about his I see on the undercard, some good fights on the undercard, some reasonable fights on the undercard. But Tommy Fury's also fighting on the undercard against, I assume, some Polish bum they found at the bus stop or something like that.
Well, that's exactly what I thought. And then I looked into the guy's record, and at one point he was 10-0. He's now 10-1, the guy. So Tommy's certainly taking a step up in competition. If he has any sense, he'd still chase that Jake Paul fight, but he's not going to get it, you know.
Yeah, that was a weird thing to just leave off. If you're going to lose, at least make a few million as you're losing.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, we're going to get a Tommy Fury victory.
Okay.
You know, it is what it is. He's never going to be a Tyson, because he's just not that good in comparison to Tyson. Yes, he's 7-0, but if you look at the guy that he's fought, you know, he fought Anthony Taylor, who's never fought in a boxing ring before. A tiny guy in comparison, you know, stature-wise, and he went all 4 rounds, unanimous decision victory with him, which isn't great, to be honest. And, you know, we got Isaac Lowe, who's training partner of Tyson Fury, returner. I believe it was maybe his last fight that he was knocked out in. So that should be good to see how Isaac Lowe bounces back from that loss. He's taking on the undefeated Nick Ball for the WBC silver. They're fighting. There's a random belt that no one really cares about on the line. So
they found some belt. Okay, gotcha.
It's just but yeah, we've also got, obviously, that is this weekend. That is the fight. If there's any fight you want to tune in for, it's Fury Wilder.
Yeah.
Ring walk will be 10:30 British time, 10:30 British time.
That's perfect. That's the right time.
It's for us, so I'm not sure what time that works out across America and whatnot. But yeah, you that's the fight you want to tune in for. But, you know, we've also got a Bellator and a UFC card, and I think the UFC maybe are going to just have to take an L on this one, because theirs is the third best card this weekend behind Bellator. But
yeah, it is. It like, you know what? In terms of the body of the card, it's not terrible. But once you put that main event on it, that anchors the whole card to being this is really kind of weak overall, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. You know, we got the main event, Andrade versus Lemos. It's not a bad fight, but it's not a main event fight.
Yeah. Who do you have in that one
Andrade.
as well? That's a fun one.
It's a difficult one because so we haven't seen Andrade down at strawweight for I can't tell you how long we haven't seen her down. She's been up as far as bantamweight. And it's not like she was struggling ever so slightly at flyweight. She won the title obviously at flyweight.
Yes.
At strawweight, sorry.
Yeah.
Then she lost to Wiley, and then she lost to Rose. Then she went up to flyweight. That vicious hook to Caitlin Chikagian's liver, which saw Caitlin almost run backwards across the octagon to get the knockout, and then she was absolutely dominated by Valentina. Then she bounced back from that loss with a win against Cynthia. So it's not like she's strung together 4 or 5 losses against at flyweight. She's got 2 wins at flyweight, both finishes. But maybe she just realizes that she's never beaten Valentina, and if she's going to have, at 30 years old now, she's going to have, another run at the title. She's fought for a title at strawweight already. When she lost she's pretty badly dominated, to be honest, by Joanna.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But then she bounced back, and after losing that, she went on a 4-fight winning streak, including the slam KO of Rose to capture the belt back.
So good.
It's interesting for me, Jessica Andrade, because we don't know. We know how she's going to fight. She's going to be in that tight shell. She's going to be looking to land bombs, and she'll mix in the wrestling if it presents itself. With Lemos, again, it's difficult to know where because she's got the power. She's got. I didn't realize she'd been in the UFC since 2017. She lost to Leslie Smith on her debut, and then she took 2 years out. She hasn't been too active, since 2019. She's only had, she fought Miranda Granger, Inoue, Souza, Montserrat Ruiz, Angela Hill, and now it's got this main event. But
I thought she was kind of a newcomer, like you were saying.
Exactly.
Yeah, I thought she was.
But to her credit, she fought 3 times last year, March, July, and then again in December. She's coming off the split decision win against Angela Hill.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It is, but unfortunately, I don't think it prepares her too well for Jessica Andrade.
Yeah, that's
completely different styles. Andrade, you've got to avoid the power. Ask Karolina Kovacevic, ask Caitlin Chikagian, ask Cynthia Calvillo. These girls have been pretty savagely knocked out by Andrade. With Angela Hill, she hasn't got the power. She's got the pepper and shot, so you can take a few to land a few. But I'm probably, I'm going to pick Andrade. She's going to more than likely be the slightly. Maybe, she's not going to be the bigger woman as far as height. She is only 5'1" maybe.
Something like that.
Yeah, so she's 5'1" with a 62-inch reach, whereas Lemos is 5'4" with a 65-inch reach. But Andrade's the one coming down in weight. Andrade's the one that's fought up at bantamweight more recently than Lemos. And I think she's physically going to be the bigger girl in there. She's used to the 5 rounds. She's gone 5 rounds multiple times and been scheduled for 5 rounds multiple times. I just don't quite understand this one as far as the headline's concerned. But
I know it's not a title eliminator by any means. It's kind of just the 2 people. I don't know. Andrade is kind of actually carrying it, and like you said, I think she's going to win this fight. But her name alone is carrying it because Amanda Lemos is by no means a name. She's not a main event fighter.
Exactly, and there's not an awful lot. That's the problem that you sometimes have with these women's fights. You don't have an awful lot of sort of highlights. With Vicente Luque, you've got hundreds of highlights of big shots landed by Vicente Luque to hype around a fight. You've got the fact that these 2 had fought previously and he'd already knocked out Belal Muhammad. So can he do the same thing again? That was rightfully a main event fight. These are 2 top ranked guys.
True.
But I think this card going down the card is a lot stronger than the card that we just had this weekend.
The body is stronger. I know. Go ahead.
We've got Clay Guida, who's, I'm out of breath just saying his name. The cardio king, Clay Guida, still doing the goddamn thing. He's almost 60 fights into a career now. 70 fights into a career.
What a guy.
He's got 58 fights.
Insane. Is it 58 more? He's not going to stop.
And he's still winning. He's not he's not a BJ Penn who's getting blasted out in all these fights. He lost to Jim Miller. He lost to Bobby Green. He beat Michael Johnson. He lost to Mark Manston. He beat Leonardo Santos, which was a huge victory for him last time out.
I think this fight is winnable. This is probably his fight.
And he's in the co-main event. He's fighting a guy with just 5 UFC fights, four in a row, but he's not been awfully active. He made his UFC debut in 2016, and he's only had 5 fights since then. He averages less than a fight a year. Yep. Further down the card, we've got Macy Barber returning. She was the hottest prospect entering the UFC when she entered the UFC in 2018. She went 3-0, 3 finishes. She then lost to Roxanne Modafferi, suffering the knee injury. She then returned and she fought Alexa Grasso, where she was just sort of punching air a lot of the time. She was way, way out of range and didn't land it, landed barely anything. And then she got the controversial win against Miranda Maverick last time out.
Yeah.
On the other side, you got Montella De La Rosa, who she's difficult because she's not brilliant in the stand-up game, but when she gets it to the floor, she's one of the best at flyweight, in my opinion, on the floor.
Yeah.
And she's got that style that she's constantly looking for the submission, and I think it'll be really interesting match of styles if she manages to get Barber down. But Barber she's a big girl, and in on Fight Night she just blew up quite large.
I want to say De La Rosa in this fight, but on paper she has the right tools, but I'm not sure if she actually does have the right tools when it comes to the fight itself. You have everything right. I just don't know if your tools are good enough to win in this fight.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm not. It all comes down to me. I'll have to watch tape on De La Rosa of how she receives a shot, because if she doesn't, she doesn't react well to being hit, she won't be able to close the distance on Barber and get it to the floor. If she manages to shrug off being hit from memory, I think she does take a shot quite well. I think she'll do quite well against Barber, because she can take a few shots to get it into the clinch, get it down, and then look to dominate Barber when it's on the floor.
Yeah. No, it's a fun little fight. Hopefully it becomes a future title contender. How about Tanner Boser and Alexander Romanov, a heavyweight of maybe who's going to enter the top 10? That's a fun little scrap. I like Romanov there.
Romanov's undefeated. He's just not, if you look down his record, he's got a lot of finishes. He's 4-0 in the UFC, 3 finishes.
Good style, good takedowns to ground and pound, fun little scrappy style there. Boser is a step up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
The only thing is for me with Romanov, he's a good, don't get me wrong, good fighter, and I think he's got a style that could take him a long way at heavyweight in the current. He's a wrestler in a division of strikers.
Yes,
we've got Curtis Blades, Tom Aspinall. That's it for today. That's all I'm going to say about Tom Aspinall, because I don't want to be sat here for another 5 hours. But he's got the style that could take him quite a long way, but it's just not that interesting. He has got these finishes, but they're very much, I'll lie on you, I'll tire you out, and then I'll get a ground and pound finish. These aren't, stand out finishes, which maybe it plays against him, but we'll see. Like you said, Tanner Boser is a huge step up, and
see how he looks in this fight. This is kind of the make or break fight for him. He's not by no means he's not a young fighter by any means.
No, so for sure.
This is kind of it for him. But maybe we'll move on to the good cards of this weekend. Bellator has got 2 cards this weekend, and arguably both are better than what the UFC is trying to offer. Even KSW 69 is way better than what the UFC is trying to offer. 1 championship. No, it's pretty good. It's not bad. But let's look at the Bellator Velasquez versus Carmouche. Julian Velasquez will be defending her flyweight championship against WMMA legend, trailblazer, history maker, Liz Carmouche. This is a bad fight for Liz Carmouche. She shouldn't be fighting anymore, right?
Yeah, I mean, you say that, and then you look down her recent fights, and she's 3-0. Since leaving the UFC with 2 finishes, and she beat Watanabe last time out, undefeated. and she KO'd on her feet within a minute.
Yeah, that's true.
Velasquez wins this fight pretty convincingly, unfortunately.
Oh, we just keep setting him up.
I know. I don't. I think she does win. Unfortunately for Carmouche, she does win this one pretty convincingly. You know, I still think the McFarlane fight for Velasquez is the fight to make, because it's just the most interesting fight for her. It's the most competitive one that she can have. And then, Carmouche is a strong contender. Sorry, but what I don't quite understand is why this fight and the Saturday card aren't. I just don't get it. They're not split evenly. You've got with Chrissy Cyborg fighting
Arlene Blech. I'm sorry, sure it's Blencowe. Yeah.
But on that fight, you've got
Kyoji Horiguchi on this one. You got Juan Archuleta. This is such a good card.
Exactly, and you've yes, they're both from Hawaii, and maybe you don't stack the Friday night as much as you stack the Saturday night, but why not put the Horiguchi Patchy Mix card fight on that other card? Why that isn't for the. I don't agree that Patchy Mix deserves the title shot, but Horiguchi does. He lost the title last time out. Archuleta versus Stotts.
Yeah,
that's for the interim belt. Obviously, with Sergio Pettis falling out of that fight, I don't quite understand why the interim belt isn't on the line for Horiguchi, but that is what it is.
Justice for Horiguchi is the only thing. This is the theme of the show forever now. Horiguchi deserves more respect.
Exactly, but if you just look down that fight itself, that card itself, you've got Chris Cyborg rematching Blencowe in the main event. Yeah, Cyborg wins that by knockout within the first 3 rounds. She's done it once before.
Yeah, totally
two or three fights ago, she stopped her by a rear naked choke.
Yeah,
she does the same thing, probably on the feet this time. However, Blencowe's coming off 2 wins, one against Pam Sorensen, who, no disrespect, it's Pam Sorensen. She's a veteran of the MMA game, but that win doesn't exactly set you up for a Cyborg fight, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You got Archuleta versus Stotts. I think that's a phenomenal fight, as is Horiguchi versus Patchy Mix. Patchy Mix, however, way off it in comparison to Horiguchi's skill set. He's just not well rounded enough. When he fought James Gallagher last time out, he looked pretty awful on the feet, and if you look pretty awful on the feet against Horiguchi, you're gonna be made to pay. And then you got McFarlane on this card. She's only on this card because it's in Hawaii. With the greatest respect to her, she should be further up. She should be the co-main event on the other fight card.
I agree.
In case one of the girls pulls out, she hasn't fought since she lost the title, but she's fighting Justine Kish, who, hasn't won a fight since January 2020 when she beat Lucy Pudlova. Is 1-5 in her last 6 fights. Why are we making these fights? You got Janet Harding returning. Obviously, our own Jeremy Brand interviewed her last week, and that was a really good interview. If you haven't caught that on the YouTube channel, be sure to check that out, because that is a really interesting interview. And then you've got Yancy Medeiros making what I think is his Bellator debut. But you've got a load of guys this weekend across Bellator and the UFC that are sort of the forgotten men of MMA. Yancy Medeiros, when he had that main event against Donald Cerrone and hasn't won since. He had the fun fight against Cowboy, the other Cowboy, Alex Oliveira, that he won. That was in 2017.
He was a good prospect
in 2017.
I think we all thought he was going to be quite good.
And he's a fun fighter. I like Yancy Medeiros. And then we go back. We bounce back to the UFC card. Tyson Pedro is returning. Tyson Pedro. He was in my whatever happened to list. And all fighters we want to see return. The guy was a top prospect. He beat Khalil Roundtree, he beat Paul Craig, and then he lost to OSB and he lost to Shogun. He hasn't fought since 2018. He makes his return this weekend, and we've also got possibly the most dangerous fighter to ever enter the UFC, Mike Jackson.
Yes, yeah, the killer.
Enough said about that. You know, he's 0-1 in the UFC. He lost to Mickey Gall.
He's 0-1 in MMA, isn't he?
In MMA, yeah.
Yeah.
He's 0-1 in MMA. He fought Mickey Gall as a final eliminator to welcome CM Punk to the UFC.
Yeah.
Lost that fight. Obviously, we know what happened to Mickey Gall. He's still in the UFC, still doing it. And Mike Jackson went on to fight CM Punk. That went down as a no contest, despite him dominating CM Punk, because I think he is a failed drug test. But he welcomes Dean Barry to the big leagues. Dean Barry signed for the UFC, I think in 2020, and he's had 4 fights cancelled now. He signed for the UFC. He had a fight cancelled, 2 fights cancelled with Mike Jackson. He then had a fight cancelled at Titan FC and another fight cancelled at a later Titan FC. He then fought at Titan FC and won in the first round. So, you know, since 2020, he's fought 21 seconds. It's not exactly great prep, but then you're fighting Mike Jackson, so you know I don't think it's not too much an issue. But he's only been out of this, you know, he's a bantamweight, I believe. Oh, sorry, no, he's a welterweight. Sorry, with knockout power. You know, he's got 4 wins, all in the first round, all by KO. So expect a Dean Barry KO to open up the card this weekend.
Totally co-sign with everything that you're saying. What we're all agreeing on is if you're going to watch a fight event this weekend and you're a major UFC fan, the UFC card is the worst one of all of them. Watch one championship, watch KSW, watch either of the Bellator cards even, but especially watch the Tyson Fury fight. Honestly, this weekend, the UFC brought their C- game, and everyone else kind of brought their B game, and they're just way better.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, looking ahead, luckily we've got a week, you know, the 30th of April, the UFC card, again live from the Apex. Rob Font versus Marlon Vera. We'll be breaking that down because that is a phenomenal bantamweight bout with potential title implications, which is something that we can't always say at bantamweight, but that one certainly is one to look forward to, that we'll be breaking down next week. And rest assured, we will be breaking down the huge Dean Barry versus Mike Jackson fight in phenomenal detail.
That's why we do it. I woke up this morning and I was like, man, make sure to catch up on the Mike Jackson stuff. What is Mike Jackson up to? Mike Jackson Instagram. That is the money fight right there. Okay, let's see if Mike Jackson.
For what I remember, I think he was a journalist before fighting CM Punk. You know, respect to anyone that gets in there, but why are we giving this guy work? You know, he's 0-1 in MMA, 0-1 in the UFC, and the only fight he's won in the UFC, Dana White was fuming with him because he didn't look at any point to finish the fight against CM Punk despite dominating CM Punk.
I wondered that too, of like, what is the UFC's like contract negotiations with this gentleman that they couldn't just drop him? You know what I mean? Like, he was meant to lose. Like, they brought him in to lose as much as possible. I don't know what they. For
sure, you're cutting people. I think I read this week that Cowboy Oliveira has been cut.
Yeah, it's a great fight.
Fun really fight. You know, he's always entertaining, and then you still give people like Jackson work. You know, I'm sure that there's a limited number of people that you can have on the roster, and he's taking up a space. But, you know, it is what it is, I guess. Hopefully, Dean Barry sends him back to whatever, or sends him out of MMA.
It is what it is. And on that, we are out of here. Watch something else this weekend. One Championship's got a fun little card. They're introducing a new Muay Thai championship, and it's going to be a fun one there. The Tyson Fury fight is the one to watch. Bellator's got a couple of good fights. KSW's got some good fights. From Tim Wheaton, Frazer Krohn. Frazer, anything else you want to send them off with?
Nope, just looking forward to breaking down the Fury White card next week. And hopefully we won't get so many fouls this weekend.
Hopefully more. Anyway, we'll get out of here. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.